Hi, I'm Katherine Druckman. I am an open source evangelist at Intel. I also happen to co-chair the Marketing Advisory Council and the DevRel community at OpenSSF, and I am currently the lead for the Open Platform for Enterprise AI Security Working Group, which is a mouthful. And I would love to join forces on any of those things, which we will get to here in a minute. But first, I'm here today as much to pose questions as to answer any of them. But I would like to share just some perspectives I've gathered, as well as some communities and resources where we can all continue our learning at the intersection of security and AI. And many conversations I have with people in software development and in open source communities, a common thread is that we're all searching for answers about security and AI right now. We're at this weird inflection point and we're all super excited. But this includes both the security implications of using, but also developing generative AI applications. And we're all really searching for community and like-minded folks. When we're faced with that kind of rapid innovation, we kind of yearn for urgent answers, but when they are elusive, we look for those like-minded folks to help us find the answers. And hopefully have experts with knowledge to share. So we're seeing conversations pop up in a few different areas and groups and communities where people are coming together to solve these new problems that we face with the proliferation of AI applications. We find ourselves realizing that traditional AppSec tools weren't designed with generative AI in mind. We've always focused on concerns like, code vulnerabilities, and still should, absolutely. But now we need to add things like model behaviors and concerns that are specific to inference and things like prompt injection vulnerabilities. Security practitioners now need to expand their threat models. The nature of generative AI challenges traditional security testing approaches that expect certain outcomes, right? Where generative AI may give less predictable outcomes. Even something as simple as a prompt interface creates kind of a unique attack surface, right? It's a bit different from traditional inputs. And maybe it isn't so simple. Output handling complexity introduces new risks beyond the ways that we may traditionally think about output handling. In the past, a simple text field is pretty straightforward, but we've gone and complicated it by adding this layer of complexity, which in my mind distills to a simple example of the shift in perspective that we need to adopt when considering how to approach security with AI applications. And then, could model weights and parameters be manipulated during deployment? Training data, influences also present different supply chain challenges. We face a lot of risks which require new approaches. These can include model manipulation, data extraction, output exploitation. Resource consumption is an interesting one that people are talking about quite a bit. New supply chain risks include things like poisoned models, data provenance issues. Intel Labs research, for example, my good friends at Intel Labs highlight the critical importance, really, of securing the training pipeline and model provenance, especially when using third-party models and data sets. And speaking of my friends at Intel Labs, I wanted to give kind of a quick plug for my friend Marcella, who, thank you for being in the audience. not to put you on the spot. But my friends at Intel Labs are researching ways to build trust in the entire machine learning pipeline and outlined a really interesting proof of concept, actually, that they feel is key to ensuring the necessary integrity and transparency of the development process. They published a proposal late last year and have since kind of fleshed out a framework and even a CLI tool called Atlas that I would encourage you to check out. I would love for you to either track down Marcella or just look it up. Good stuff, available, open source. But in a nutshell, modern AI development involves a complex chain of participants. Data scientists collect and prepare training data. ML vendors can develop algorithms. Engineers build training infrastructure. External contractors may handle specialized tuning. Operations teams deploy models for use. Each handoff between these groups creates a potential security vulnerability, like a relay race where the baton could be dropped at any point. And with AI, these vulnerabilities can have serious consequences. which is why we need an approach that covers the entire life cycle. Their research identifies two main threats to AI systems. The first is data poisoning, where bad actors intentionally corrupt training data. These modifications are typically subtle. They don't break the AI completely, but create specific vulnerabilities that can be exploited later. And the second major threat involves supply chain risks. When you download a pre-trained model or outsource training, how do you know that it was trained correctly? The model might contain hidden backdoors, or the training might have been conducted improperly. This is similar to software supply chain attacks that have made headlines in recent years. Both threats, though, are particularly dangerous because they're difficult to detect through traditional testing methods. An AI might perform perfectly on test data, but still have hidden vulnerabilities that activate only under specific conditions. To address these threats, again, my friends who I admire tremendously at Intel Labs, they propose a 3-layer security framework that works like a series of protective shields around AI development. So the first is data integrity, the second, real-time verification, the third, model lineage. Together, these layers would make it much harder for attackers to compromise AI systems without detection. So what are we doing about all of these new and exciting and worrying threats that generative AI has popped up? I wanted to just really walk us through a few initiatives just as a point of reference. These are places you should take a look, dive deep. There's a lot of reference material coming out of these organizations, and I would encourage you to take a look. I'll let you pause and take pictures. Awesome. Okay, so the first, OWASP AI Exchange, founded to advance AI security standards and regulations. The project is structured as a coherent resource covering the complete AI security landscape. It contains over 65 expert contributors, creating a living document of best practices, and serves as an input to standards like the EU AI Act, and also the OWASP Top 10 for ML, and the OWASP LLM Top 10, other additional resources that you can check out from OWASP. The AI Exchange is marked with Creative Commons 1.0, by the way, meaning content can be used freely without copyright constraints. We love that. They distinguish, so this is a threat model that they have published, and they distinguish 3 types of threats. During development time, when data is obtained, prepared, model training. The second is through using the model, right, providing input, getting output. And the third is by attacking the system during runtime. I won't go too into detail because this is a very quick talk, but this is something that I would encourage you to reference later. They also provide this security matrix that organizes threats and controls by asset, impact, attack surface. It helps quickly identify appropriate controls for specific threat scenarios and provides a structured approach, I think, for risk assessment. Yeah. So the AI Exchange also provides specific controls tailored to generative AI applications and mitigations as well. Again, OWASP also provides a top 10 for large language models. Well worth digging into. I will not dig into it here, but I encourage you to spend some time with it. There's quite a bit of data available and information for each one of these top 10. And their website is quite intuitive and interactive, and you can really, really dig into the meaning of each of these. And then we have the MITRE Atlas framework. Again, for example, in the OPEA security working group, we've taken a look at this and really tried to identify. It's been a useful tool for identifying how others are evaluating threat and risk for generative AI, but it's also kind of been a point where we think it maybe doesn't cover everything. So this is, again, it's one tool in the toolbox, one resource to check out, highly recommend, but it does provide a taxonomy of attacks and techniques. And a starting point, frankly, for thinking about your own threat modeling approaches. Again, very complicated, extensive documentation that I will not dig too deeply into here, or else we will run out of time. Here's another resource, the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. Now, we are all a little concerned about NIST's funding these days, but they did manage to publish some really good resources. So first we have the Risk Management Framework, a voluntary framework, very adaptable, could be applied to any AI system, regardless of complexity or industry sector. And they've also, this is the sort of the 4 key elements of that document, but again, I won't dig too deeply, but encourage you to look further later. And they also have additionally just recently published the adversarial machine learning, taxonomy and terminology of attacks, and mitigations being incredibly useful and relevant. These include things like clean label poisoning, which is an attack that subtly corrupts the data without altering labels, a little bit harder to detect. Anyway, great, useful resource. I think it came out just in May, or maybe it was March, but very recent. Yeah, useful stuff. So I wanted to also mention some working groups, right? One is the one that I'm involved in, the Open Platform for Enterprise AI Security Working Group. The scope really is mostly limited to that project itself, but it is under the LF AI and Data. It is a project under that umbrella. And then, of course, we have an OpenSSF AI and ML working group doing fantastic work. Among the things that this group is doing a fantastic job with is tracking the work of all the other groups, and I will get to that in a minute. Finally, we have COAS AI, which has multiple work streams working towards securing generative AI, and again, highly encourage just kind of diving in to follow their work. But so the takeaway here, though, there are quite a few separate groups of brilliant folks gathering together to advance this work in AI security. But as a parting thought, I would like to propose that maybe there should actually be fewer venues for this conversation. Might be a little controversial. More people should certainly get involved, right, in this effort. Join the conversation because there just aren't enough people working in security. I think we all know this. But I would like to see us come together and reduce the fragmentation of our efforts here. Get the best people in the same room, solve the difficult problems together, and unsiloed. We don't need to own every conversation. Collaboration, I think, is the way that we move forward. So thank you so much for this. I hope it's been helpful. I hope it's been a beginning of some places to dive in and learn more. So thank you all.